Ladies and gentlemen, guys and dolls, boys and girls, people of all ages, welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio with Scott, Shane, and Paris. Hello, my brothers.
Hello.
We're going to have a fun-filled show today. I'm reminded of a book, that became a movie, that became legend. We're going to talk about some seriously fun stuff today, and by fun I mean holy crap! Pay attention, buckle up, because it's going to get really stuff, interesting. Right? Yeah, and you might end up joining the hashtag Me Too movement by the end of this episode in a different way, financially. But before we jump into it, I want to remind you guys of two things coming up, two events. The first event that we are all excited for is Shootah, which is May 20th. Use the promo code PrepperTalk to get your discount tickets online. Make sure you use that code. We are planning to be there. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. There's going to be a lot of cool pew-pews you can test out, try out. If you're going to be anywhere near Utah, you need to make sure you get to Utah for that event. Also, June 2nd and 3rd, the Be Prepared Expo will be held in the Legacy Event Center here in up in Farmington, Utah, not far from Salt Lake City. So that's one you're going to want to make sure you come to as well. You can go to, for these two events, go to Shootah for tickets.
It's ShootaEvents.com.
Yeah, ShootaEvents.com for tickets for Shootah, and for Be Prepared Expo, it's just BePreparedExpo.com for tickets there. And you can get yourself much better prepared and start building your community of preparedness-minded friends by attending these events. Now, why do I bring these up? Because you need to be doing this now. You need to stop procrastinating. If you've been procrastinating, you are well behind where you should be at this point in your preparedness journey. So it doesn't mean give up, all is lost. It means hunker down, focus, stream every one of our episodes, get caught up, then go out and start taking care of business. And by that, I mean pay attention to what's happening as well. We're going to dive into what's going on financially right now. Now, if you remember, you've all seen what happened just in the last few months with banks. FDIC is reporting 3 bank failures that have had to been taken over by the FDIC.
Mm-hmm.
That's just March, April, and May. I think there's 6 or 7 this year that have been shut down and or had to be taken over, if I remember right.
Yeah, with these 4 banks, the overall dollar amount totals more than all 25 banks that collapsed in the Great Financial Crisis.
There you go.
Oh wow!
And that was in 2009.
The 8 and 9 one.
And this is only 5 months into this year. So buckle up.
Well, I think it shows 2 things. It shows, one, that it is getting a lot worse than people want to realize. Mm-hmm. But 2, it shows how bad inflation is compared to then.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a twofold illustrator. Like, and if you look back in history, like, when else has this happened? When else has things like this happened? Well, we had this happen in 2008, right? 2009. It's happening now. What else happened? What kicked off the Great Depression? What caused the writing of the book, The Wizard of Oz?
Run on the banks.
Run on the banks. You know, it's fantastic because there are parallels that are affecting us today. And if you look at the parallel of the Great Depression, how long did that last?
I think it was 10 years, wasn't it? Or it was in the 20s. So it's like probably what?
29 to 30.
29 to 33, I think. So you're right. Yeah. 4 years, sorry.
Yeah, it was 4 years for the Great Depression. But what happened during that time? They got off gold and silver and went to the dollar, right? They then after that completely backed off the gold standard later.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that different than what we're doing now. We have a standard, I'm going to throw air quotes, that's backing the dollar, which is really the U.S. mite and the petrodollar, right? Both of those are disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going to happen to us, we the people? What's going to happen to the world? financially.
The talk of de-dollarization continues to increase every single day between all kinds of countries. It's out in the open. It's a very widely discussed topic. Yet, what do we hear about it here in our media? Nothing. Next to nothing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, if we pretend it's not real, it's not real. It's not really going to happen as long as we pretend, right? But that's not the case. So that's one of the reasons why I don't know we tend to talk about gold and silver and banking kind of often here, especially recently. But we felt we needed to talk about this at least one more time to help you guys prepare, at least to bring this to your mind so you can make better choices and be aware of what's going on, because it's not pretty behind the scenes. Not that you or I or any of us can see behind the scenes, but if we interpret really what's going on and stretch that out a little bit to imagine what could really be going on behind the scenes, it's not good.
Yeah, I did a video on my financial channel for those that want to go check that out on YouTube. It's at Financial Self-Reliance, but it's like Paris Financial Self-Reliance. You can look that up. I did a video not too long ago about when SVB, when the Central Valley Bank went under, and then there was also the Silvergate bank institution went under, and talking about what would you do, and what could you do, and what I do with my money. And one of those things is making sure that I have diversification. And we had somebody ask the question, what's the difference between banks and credit unions? Mm-hmm. And are credit unions just as susceptible to this? And, they follow different rules, different laws. And so it's kind of, the analogy that I use is that it's a credit union is a different room in the house of, financial house, so to speak. And banks are in another room, and banks are on fire. And so if one room of your house is on fire and you don't do anything about it, what's the likelihood that multiple rooms of your house are going to eventually catch on fire if you don't do something about it? And that's kind of the idea here, that credit unions are a little safer in some instances, in some ways. But, if there's a run on the banks, people who don't understand the difference between those two are going to run the credit unions just as much as they're going to run the banks. So you got to be watchful about that.
Here's something to take into account is that, obviously, the Chase Bank is the one who purchased First Republic, who recently collapsed this last weekend. And they say they were invited by our government, the U.S. government, to step in and purchase First Republic. But how'd they do it? They did it with a loan from the Federal Reserve. And what is going to be the outcome is Chase is going to be bigger and stronger. And they only bought the portions of First Republic that were profitable. The rest is going to be absorbed by the taxpayers. I mean, this is really all going to be on the taxpayers, as if we'll end up paying any of this off. But so, Paris, you're talking about credit unions. So there's been some talk about, okay, where should I put my money? If I had cash in the bank, which I don't, I have this. This is my bank, right? Which we're going to talk about more. But if I had cash in the bank, especially anything that exceeds $250,000, which is the FDIC insurance limit, as if our government has any of that currency anyway. They don't have it. It comes out of the general budget of the government, which is getting lower and lower. And they're, Janet Yellen, Janet Yellen said, if by June 1st, the debt limit isn't raised by the U.S. government, we're going to be out of money. And be out of currency. She said money, obviously. There is a difference. But so my question is, where is really the safe place to put your currency, your dollar bills? And in my interpretation is put it with Chase, put it with the big banks, because those are the ones that the Federal Reserve, the government, is going to continue to prop up because they are now systemically important. So, not trying to tell you what to do. I think it's important to work with the small banks, the credit unions. That's where I bank with. But as a backup, I think it's a good idea to have an account with a large bank like Chase as a diversification of some sort, right? The mid-sized banks seem to be the ones who are taking the hit right now. But the big banks,
the regional banks.
Yeah,
yep,
exactly. With the small banks, I think it really depends on what they're invested in, what they've done with your money.
Yeah, watch out for the ones that are very heavily invested in tech, and watch out for the ones that are very heavily invested in real estate.
Those who are leveraged or speculating. Yeah, absolutely.
I think the lesson, if I was to take a lesson from a personal finance point of view, which is where that's kind of my thought process anyway. So a lot of people are like, well, the economy as a whole, everything's great. Everything's going great. We can do whatever we want. We can live with capitalistic society. Credit cards are just fine. We can just pay back. I got future money. I got a great job. I can pay tomorrow for something I buy today. Everything's, going to continue to do what it's been doing. Well, no. Okay. We got to stop that. We got to reassess how financial planning and our personal finances work, in my opinion. And so if we're looking at the macro economy right now and saying, okay, these banks who are supposed to be smart with their money, they're supposed to manage their money properly. They're supposed to be good at managing their income and their cash flows and their positive, cash flows and profitability. And if these we got guys with PhDs in economics that are running these banks, and they're so over leveraged, meaning they have bigger credit. Like if I was to say, let's extrapolate that down to our, individual personal level, they have too much credit card debt. That's what over leveraged mean. They have way more money out there that they owe than they do have money that they own. And that's what we need to do is we need to stop that example and go back to what we should be doing is having more that we own and less that we owe. So we have positive cash flow, positive net worth, and it becomes self-reliant. That's the thing.
Well, it's interesting. Like I've talked about this book a number of times, The Creature from Jekyll Island. It explains how the whole Fed system's built, how all the banking systems work, the Federal Reserve. It's all this giant, starving monster that if you're not constantly feeding it, it will implode and destroy itself. And it's designed to be backed by Congress so that Congress can just vote in more money. And you're 100% right, Paris. The finance charges, the interest charges alone are more than the minimum payments that these guys are making. That's how over leveraged they are on the credit. That's the same way our United States government is spending.
And like you're saying, Scott, is when you said it is a monster, it has to be fed. And the way it is fed is by creating more currency.
Yep.
And we see over the past couple of years with the tightening, air quotes, that the Federal Reserve has done by raising rates, by not doing QE, right, printing more currency into existence, is tightening. And what that's doing, it's starving the monster. And that's where these failures are coming in. And that's where interest rates going up even another quarter point like they raised today. Raising a quarter point into a banking collapse and into inflation. Actually, I think it's going to be a inflationary and deflationary. I think you're going to see both in there, depending on the assets. Some assets are going to deflate. We're seeing that already, and others are going to inflate. I mean, look at gold and silver; they're going up. Not that that's inflation in the regular terms, but it's everything that the Fed and the government has done has led to this, and it's all their fault. We can blame it on them completely. And also the way, like you say, Paris, is, this is a consumer economy. We've been programmed our entire lives to go get debt. You gotta get the debt for the house and the car and the credit cards and live this lifestyle. And that is biting us in the butt right now. But that's what we've been programmed to do our entire lives. You got to break out of that, just like you say, Paris.
There's only one way that we're going to break out of the system, and that's by So there's a couple things we need to do to break out of the system. And I'm hoping that most people are seeing these macro level, like these are guys with PhDs. They're supposed to be smart. They're supposed to be knowing what they're doing.
They're Keynesian, right? They're not Austrian. They're wrong. They're completely wrong.
They are. And we've been giving over our agency. We've been saying, look, we don't know what to do. We're going to trust the experts. And that's part of the problem is our Constitution was built so that the average we the people person and could run and common sense could run our government. Well, one of the things that the liberals do, well, they will say, you know what, we're not smart enough to run the government, so we're going to go hire a bunch of experts with EPAs and DOLs and all these other agencies, that whatever, and we're going to let them tell us what to do to run the government. So now the government is run by a bunch of experts. That's why, literally, what did Biden just put in place right now? He put in this whole dumb thing about the environmental social justice, whatever, executive order that he put through, and he's created experts to run the government. It was not what was supposed to happen. The founding fathers would be like just pulling their hair out right now, because their government was never supposed to be run by experts. It's supposed to be run by common sense, regular people with working together, collaborating together to figure things out. And so we now have all these experts. We've surrendered our liberties. We've surrendered our thought process, our common sense to these experts. And that's a lot of what the woke society is doing. Well, you can't tell me what a boy or a man or a woman is because you're not a biologist. Well, I don't care if I'm a biologist or not. Common sense is that an XY is a girl and an XX is a boy. I think that's the right ones. Anyways, the point is that common sense for us is, financially speaking, is, okay, we need to be making more money. We need to be spending less than we're making. We need to be managing our debt if we have any, because there's some things like house and car and some things that are reasonable, like education, stuff like that. So it's reasonable to have debt to manage. And then we need to be insuring, like with health insurance, life insurance, those types of things, to kind of keep it from those catastrophic issues. Have a savings account, emergency fund money, cash that we are saving up to buy things rather than paying credit cards and then hoping we can pay for it later. I mean, all these things that we should be doing are common sense when you sit down and think about it. Like, yeah, duh, I should be doing that the whole time. But are you actually doing it? You should do it, but are you actually doing it? And
that takes some sacrifice.
It does, yeah. And discipline
and living differently, living differently than the Joneses down the street, right?
And more discipline, not just like the discipline that we are used to, the three of us, and those who've been prepping for a long time. It's going to require even more discipline.
Yeah,
I think as we watch, everything's going exponentially off the rails, right? It is a slow apocalypse.
It really is. Yeah, it really is.
Right. But if you look back at it from where we are, go hindsight 2020, did you think it would go this fast either?
That's true too.
And that's the thing, is we're missing a lot of it until we look backwards and start paying attention to it. And we go back to Shane's famous quote: to prepare for the future, you have to look to the past.
Look to the past, yeah.
And I said it backwards. You've got to look to the past to prepare for the future. But I needed to back into it because the whole world is getting backed into a new corner. And they're intentionally taking away every escape path if you're not setting up the discipline to create those escape paths now. And that's the self-reliance escape paths. Be localized. Be neighborhood driven in your local economy. Buying locally, shopping locally, supporting the people who build and do things near you, working with your community. Like, the more we can do local, the tighter that supply chain is, the safer we're going to be, is one factor. The other big factors are what Shane's been talking about, being your own bank, right? One of the factors we've talked about for months, years, decades, having a storehouse, not just your food storage, but a storehouse in your home. You have a little store in your home that you pull and you resupply, and you've got 6 months, a year, 2 years, however many years long you want to have of the essentials, medications, your food, your water filtration, water treatment methods, fuels, all the different detergents and household cleaners. Like, it's even backups for obviously your first aid, backups for your lights, backups for your kids and kids medications, diapers if you're expecting more kids. Like, getting a little bit of everything, a little extra of everything. You're going to need to be a lot more disciplined going forward.
Yep. As an example, what you shared earlier, Scott, about staying local, I have a tree in my backyard, and the guy came out today. We needed to trim it. Our neighbors we're working out a deal because it's growing into his yard. And the tree guy was like, I had 2 people come out and give me a quote, and they both said I would not have planted that tree right there. and it's going to cause you bigger problems in the future unless you remove it. And so I'm like, and then he said, this tree wasn't even supposed to be in Utah. Like this is planted from somewhere else. And so I'm like, well, no wonder. He says every one of these trees is diseased in some way, and it's got 1 foot in the grave anyway. So you're 10 years, maybe 15 years before it's going to die. And I'm like, I'm not letting this thing fall onto my neighbor's fence and collapse into his shed. So I'm we're going to get it removed on Monday. But the other thing is, I was talking to another buddy today, and he's like, Paris, we were originally like, if you read the scriptures say in one of the scriptures that the health, the local farmers are supposed, the food is to be eaten in its season. And so like, if I get strawberries from another part of the country, that's not the season for what Utah's strawberries should be, I'm kind of hijacking the system. And there, of course, we got right now, by the way, we have a supply chain that works, but at some point it's not. And so we got to be able to realize, wait a minute, where are your local, like Farmish, the app Farmish, fantastic. We recommend that. So open that up, look at it, and find out who locally is growing, strawberries, who's growing beets, who's growing eggs, who's growing, like, so that you have the local environment producing the local produce. Then you can use, and that's going to be more, you're breathing the local air, it's going to be, it's just healthier. I mean, we're getting into some nuances now on that stuff, but
so many benefits, but it goes back to the discipline, right? Start doing all these things now. Goes back to the financial, what is really going on and how is it affecting us? I mean, before the show, we started talking about what's going on in Nigeria.
Oh, real quick. Let's talk real fast about this right here.
Okay. Sorry. I'm jumping.
No, you're fine. We're going to talk about that next real fast, but let me share the screen. If you're listening and you want to go to the YouTube video, it's about minute 21. So I'm going to share this window right here. So today, just as another example on what we need to be watchful, is that today, which is, what are we, May 3rd? As the recording this video, May 3rd, the Fed raised their rates again, 1/4 point. And so this is not going to be helpful at all. So now we're at 5. It says here, we raised it from 5% to 5.25%. When the Fed rates go up like that, that's one of the reasons why all of these banks have collapsed. Because what they'll do is they'll take the depositors' money. So when we go deposit money in the bank, what they do is they'll take that money and they go and invest it in bonds, and then go invest it in bonds and other things, by the way. And then the difference between what they earn and what they pay you, which is called arbitrage, is what the bank earns. And that's why they have bigger lobbies than we have houses sometimes, because they're taking our money and they're investing it. So keep as little money as possible in the bank, and you go put your money in the market and make money. That's a scripture. I actually did a video on my channel about what the Bible teaches about money. So go watch that video on financial self-reliance. But this is why, because these banks went out and invested money in bonds, which are long-term bonds. And whenever the rates go up from the Fed, the bonds lose their value. And when the bonds lose their value, now the banks literally invested in something that they can't sustain. And so they have to cancel out of those investments, especially if there's a run on the bank, because people want their money, because they don't keep their money in the bank. They keep their money in these bonds. So now that people run to the bank, give us our money, we're scared. And then they have to cancel these bonds that they're in, and they have to cancel them now at a discount, and they're losing money. And so now they're losing money. That's why, and when they give you, they run out of money. They run out of money because they just had to pay a huge fee to cancel early to be able to pay you the money, because you wanted to have it right now and withdraw it right now. So that's why, in a nutshell, I mean, there's a lot of details, and we could get into another hour just only on why that's happening. But that's just to give you an idea, an overview of why these banks are really collapsing. Some of the big reasons.
Yeah, and again, that's why we want to be your own bank. That's why I'm my own bank, right? And part of that is I've been listening to some commentary on this economist, Richard Russell. He's been around for a long time. He's very well known, and one thing I guess he's always been made part of his investment strategy is each family should accumulate 3,000 ounces of gold. 3,000 ounces of gold is generational wealth that you can pass from generation to generation. So if you look back further than the dollar has been in existence, how was wealth transferred? It was transferred in real owning of real estate or precious metals and businesses and other methods that way, but physical tangible assets. So I believe that a way not only just to preserve wealth, we have come to a point where this owning gold and silver will do far more than just preserving wealth. It is going to increase exponentially because of the levels of debt. So essentially, we should be measuring our wealth in ounces and not in dollars, right? Because look at what the dollar is doing. It's going away. Eventually, it'll be worth nothing. It's lost 97+% since its inception in 1913. 97% of purchasing power.
Wow.
So it is a very bad investment, obviously.
So let's, if you guys are okay, let's jump into what Scott was pointing us towards with this Nigerian thing. Let me share that screen real quick. So this is an article from the Cato Institute, and they're very highly respected economic researching, and they have here: Nigeria restricts cash to put central bank digital currency in place. So it doesn't say in place there, but if you read it, that's what they're doing. So we actually have a video to share and show, and hopefully it comes through properly. You guys ready to show that?
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Nigeria is basically cashless now, and that they have a central bank digital currency.
After a 3-week delay, Nigeria's digital currency is now legal tender.
Only 0.5% of Nigerians signed up. Yes, big surprise. Most people don't want a central bank digital currency. They limited the amount of cash that people could withdraw from the banks and ATMs to $44 per week. The average Nigerian needs $40 per day to survive.
Scenes of destruction are evident at different banks.
Still a tug of war to get cash.
They banned cash. The government came out in October of 2022 and said that they're no longer accepting the old banknotes. So they said, we're going to give you new banknotes. But then the banks stopped issuing the new ones and people couldn't get the new ones.
The banks are making the new Naira note very difficult for Nigerians to access.
So what happened? A 60% increase in people who are using CBDCs, because guess what? Children were starting to starve. They starved their own people into adopting central bank digital currency. The world leaders are taking notes on this, and we the people need to take notes on this. Only the American people can stop this. And if you don't think that a central bank digital currency and a cashless society, just like Nigeria, isn't coming here, then you need to be right.
So that's the not that we here we go. Trust but verify. So do your research.
Yeah.
Make sure that what we just shared is true. And I've done a little bit of research. The guy brings receipts on his posts on his YouTube channel, on his Instagram. He's got all the receipts there from Bloomberg, Forbes, CBN.gov. I mean, he's got Africa News. So it's legit what he's shared with there in that. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the different articles because he posted those in his video. Those that weren't only listening on audio, you don't have that, but we can definitely see the links here as we're looking on our end as well. So we'll do a little bit more research, but that's some scary stuff because that's true. Like, I love what he said. The world leaders are taking notes, and we the people should be taking notes too. And that's the big thing. Like, is it affecting you, America, right now? No, but that doesn't give us an excuse to just sit back and let everything happen. We got to be taking notes. What are these world leaders doing? Because at some point, their goal, and whether you know this or not, but I'm telling you right now, their goal is a one world government to take over the world. They want to have a one world religion, one world government, a one world,
currency eventually.
Currency, one world leaders. And central bank digital currencies is one of their iterations of how to create a world currency.
And let me guarantee something is that all of this already exists. Everything is already there in place.
Mm-hmm.
And all it's is waiting for us to the right time to implement everything.
To roll it out.
Exactly.
So they've gone through practices. They've done scenarios, right? Nigeria is probably one of those practices.
Oh, yeah.
Every plan that they put together to do things like this starts with the idea, then they roundtable it, they implement it somewhere,
beta test,
roundtable it again, implement it, tweak it. So they've been doing this for years. I mean, there are 3-letter organizations. Their whole job is to go destabilize the country so they can change out their political powers and change out their monetary systems.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been practicing it on everyone else, and now they're going to do it to the world. Does that scare you? Well, it shouldn't scare you. It should wake you up.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to tell people. Like, wake up to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Be aware, but don't live in fear of what's going on around you and what's going on in the world. Because if you live in fear, most of the time what happens is you get into that fight or flight or freeze. And a lot of people right now are freezing. They're frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what to do for lack of information.
Yep.
For lack of knowledge.
And the other thing too is that a lot of people are realizing that they have been walking a road that is not going to lead them to where they thought it was going to lead them. Another analogy is you've been climbing a ladder, and I promise you it's up against the wrong wall. You know, you got to, if you want to get over the wall, you got to get a different ladder, because this one's not going to get you over the wall of slave, you know, whatever it is, into liberty. So we have I'm way behind Shane on the 3,000 ounces.
No, me too. Me too. When I heard that, I'm like, I'm not done yet.
I don't even have a gram of gold. Like, you guys are crushing it compared to me. I've got some silver, but I lost it in a boating accident with my guns.
Yeah. Those darn boating accidents, man.
I got to get rid of that boat. I tell you, it's nothing but problems.
Stay away from boats altogether. Like, don't even go on a boat.
I'd be fine with that. Other than fishing boat or kayak, right? I gotta get out of those.
Maybe I'll just go buy myself a nice old Buick and have a road boat.
There you go. An actual boat. Yeah, an actual road boat.
A highway boat.
I see what you're saying.
Road boat. Yeah. It's crazy. Like, all the things that are going on, it's crazy. So it's like, okay, well, where do you put your money? What do you do? There are options. Don't panic. Don't freak out. We've talked about buying gold and silver, getting Goldbacks, right? What else can they do, guys?
Food. I mean, I always tell people, look, before you're going to get into gold and silver, before you get into all the gear and everything else, before you start buying freeze dryers and, all that stuff, you get your 90-day pantry first. Get your food storage. Like, if you can survive, I don't know what the statistic is, but it's ridiculously low. Like 3 to 5% of Americans can have enough food on hand to live for a month. And we need to stop and get back to these basic principles. Get your 90-day pantry in order. What are you going to eat for breakfast for 90 days? What are you going to eat for lunch for 90 days? What are you going to eat for dinner for 90 days? Get that in order. Get your water. Store a gallon a day per person, per adult. And so if you have a bunch of kids, maybe you can cut that in half, and it's a gallon per 2 kids, because 2 kids can equal an adult in that case. And then get your grab and go bag, and then get some things for if you got to hunker down and survive in your home, like some cooking and some things to cook food and prepare the food that you're storing in your storage. And then you can go get some gold and silver and start planning for that. Because the food you can't eat. I believe a lot of people tell me all the time, why would I get gold and silver? You can't eat it. Mm-hmm. You're right. You're absolutely right. That's why I tell you to get food first. Get your long-term storage first, your short-term and long-term food storage first, your water storage first, your grab and go bag, your some stuff for hunkering in and bugging in, and then start getting the gold and silver. Because honestly, you're going to need, when economies collapse and economies rebuild, every economy, after it collapsed and has started to rebuilds on gold and silver. Every economy, all throughout the last, 500, 600, at least. Gold's been around for 6,000 or so years, but at least if you, Ray Dalio did the study of the last 500-600 years, and for sure, every major cycle of world currencies restarted with gold and silver as their base. And so one of the places we just recently have, and we're excited about this, we just started a relationship with a company that is willing to take time to really educate people and give them what they need. And it's called ITM Trading. And the lady that runs this or started this, she's kind of the face, if you will, of it, is Lynette. What's her name, Shane?
Zang. Lynette Zang.
Lynette Zang. And she's somebody that we actually follow, and Shane follows. And
followed her for a long time. Yeah, for a number of years. And then I guess, I know, Paris, you've been working on this. ITM reached out to us. We didn't even reach out to ITM. They reached out to us and wanted to work with us on this. And I was more than happy to hear that. I said, you know, I'm all in on this. This was fantastic. And Paris, maybe
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about it.
So they reached out to us, and we went through a presentation and heard about what they were going to offer. And we just want to make sure that before we make, and this is our MO, and this will always be our MO, I hope, that we make sure we do our homework. And if we would do it, we'll share it with others, because we're not going to share anything with you guys that we wouldn't do ourselves and to just make money. And Shane and I and Scott, we all three of us own precious metals, and we love precious metals. And frankly, ITM Trading, who has got a fantastic educational system. And so their whole design, we get a lot of people that ask us, why gold? Why silver? What's the point? What do I do? And so we try our best to share what we've learned over the years in terms of why gold is so important, the history of gold and silver, the history of precious metals. We share things like what I shared earlier about economic cycles are always founded on gold. And every time a fiat currency gets off of the gold standard, it's just inevitable within a few years, they're going to fail. And so a lot of that stuff, though, these guys are experts at it. They're subject matter experts in precious metals. And so if you want to know, like, all you have to do is go to the site. It's a link in the description below. And you'll see, and you got our picture there, because it's our landing page for this program. And you call them on the phone and you say, listen, I want to know more about gold and silver. I want to know more about precious metals. And they'll walk you through a whole history lesson. They'll teach you everything you want to know, answer all your questions. And then when you're ready to buy, there's no pressure to buy, but when you're ready to buy, if you have an IRA or an old 401k that's now an IRA somewhere and you want to put it in precious metals, they'll help you with that. If you just want to buy bullion, they'll help you with that. And they'll share with you the importance of raw bullion versus numismatics, and which are collectibles. Numismatics means they're a collectible gold and silver, which does have some value and a place in someone's portfolio of stuff. And so these guys are really, I think they're top notch. They're not the only place that we recommend to buy gold and silver, because some people already know a lot. If you already know the history and you just want to buy raw bullion at like rock bottom prices, there's some other places that you can go for that. But these guys have really good prices. We've compared, and their prices are good enough that we feel comfortable sending people to this link. So it's ITM Trading, Prepper Talk Radio. It's in our thing. And there's if you call the number, the number is 866-257-0481. And the link's in the description for you to even click the button here. If you click that, it opens up and you get a Calendly, and you can set a time to call, 30-minute consultation with them. No charge to you. There's no obligation. You just literally get set up a time to go visit with these guys and chat with them for a little while and see what they can offer you if you want to have gold and silver in your portfolio. So it really helped the show as well. And we would love to bring to you some of the top-notch things that are in our industry as we move forward. And we know that gold and silver is I don't know of a better place other than maybe real estate where you can store value of your money and your actual dollars. And there's gold and silver, precious metals it is.
Yeah. Just a quick comment or two is the value of the education they give is they're also I don't know if they have registered investment advisors, but that is what they're going to do for you. They're going to advise you as to what are the right products for you to buy, whether it's bullion or it's other types, coins or bars or rounds or whatever it might be, gold or silver. They're going to help you choose and decide what is the right product for you to buy. And for me, I've decided, and through trial and error, really, is how I figured it out. But they can shortcut that for you and say, based on this time in your life, your age, these are what I recommend. This is going to be the best value for you. This is the most safety. It's going to fit your needs, and they can tailor that to you through this phone call.
Yep.
And it's not just 30 minutes. I mean, you can call them anytime and pick their brains and figure out what is the best way for you to start purchasing precious metals. So I'm really excited about this. I am going to put my own call in, and I'm going to pretend I don't know anything, and I'm going to go through the process, and I'm going to spend some money, and I'm going to do this. And the other thing that's
really cool is that they shared with us. I said, listen, can we have Lynette come on our show?
Mm-hmm.
Because she's actually a prepper. she's
Oh,
a legit
absolutely. She's a legit
homesteading
prepper.
like
Yeah.
prepper. Like what was funny is the guy was telling me, he says, yeah, sometimes Lynette will bring in bags of vegetables. And we're like, why are you bringing these bags? She's like, it's extra from my garden. So Lynette's legit as a prepper. So I know she's excited. They told me that when we asked her if we could come on the show, they seemed to have her that she was excited to come on our show and talk to our audience. And so we're going to have her on the show, hopefully in mid to end June, maybe July. We're going to have her on the show to kind of go through it and share with us what she's doing and some of the things that she's seeing, because when she's in the industry, economic industry, if you will, she's seeing some of these things that are happening in these banks. She knows what's going on in the bank. She knows what's going on in the macroeconomic level. And she's very intelligent, very well read, very versed in all this stuff. And she's
very intelligent. Yeah.
I've just watched some of her videos on YouTube, and it's like, I'm like, wow, this lady is right up my alley and our alley. As
she really is. And, and Scott, you had made a comment, or Paris, you had made a comment earlier about there are other places you can buy your precious metals. And I know Lynette, and listening to her, she will say probably the best place to go buy your precious metals is at a local dealer. If you got local place to go, you can go get it, cash in hand, walk it out with your hand. That is, in my opinion as well, the best place to get your precious metals. But depending on the volume and on what products availability that your local shop may have, this, in my opinion, is my personal second choice. I do prefer to walk in. So we're not saying, this would definitely help out the show, help support us. Full disclosure, we do have an arrangement with them, and we'll make a small commission on this, right? I mean, that's how this works. So we would appreciate your support, but regardless, go get some gold and silver. I love this stuff. Gold, silver. I got all the little samples right here. They can sell you these kinds of things. They can sell you these kinds of things. They can sell you, these kinds of things. So it's essential. In my opinion, this is absolutely essential. No, you can't eat it, but you can. There will be a time when you can trade this. You can get more. I know I mentioned earlier in the show, this will be more than just preservation of wealth. This will be will potentially make you rich. Not that that's the goal, but for my plans and my family, this is our future, to be put it bluntly. Our financial
bringing
future.
it back to capping out the show for today. You have a lot to do as a listener. You have to go get a better understanding of what's going on economically. You've got to go get a better understanding of what's going on with your local supply chain, with your food, with your cleaning supplies, with everything. If you've got everything taken care of on the food and water and basics, necessities are covered for at least 90 days, then you owe it to yourself to do the research, hop on a call, and learn about what you can do with your gold and silver. What makes the most sense to you, and strategize what makes the most sense to you, right? That's what prepping is all about, is finding what's the best solution for your family, for your network, for your group, and then implementing those tools. And that's what every episode we're trying to do, is give you opportunities to do your research and find out what works best for you, because these are the things that work best for us. Right. That's why we'll talk about different types of products and say, yeah, I love this because of XYZ. For example, I choose the Sawyer Mini water filter for personal filtration over the Life Straw for personal filtration. And it comes down to the simplicity of, I can use it in multiple ways that the Life Straw doesn't have a feature to be used. Right. And so when you're looking at gold and silver, you want to look at it from what are the features and benefits. How is it going to help you in long term, short term, and midterm? And is it the right time? So without further ado, I want to thank you for listening to this episode. I want to thank you for being part of the Prepper Talk Radio family. Make sure you are liking, you are commenting, you are engaging with us. And if you want more time with us, make sure you're getting our groups. You can comment with us on YouTube. You can comment with us on all of our different platforms on Instagram, Facebook, but we have a group in Facebook. If you want to really get some FaceTime with us, hop in there and join our weekly lives. We go live every Wednesday night, typically 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And we want you to be part of that show. We want you to be able to ask your questions, and we want you to be engaged with us every step of the way. You might have things that you've done that can help our community just as much as our community can help you. We need you. We want you. Let's get ready together. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for a wonderful, wonderful episode again, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
All right. Take
See you
care.
next week.